Hello, Professor. My name is Jonathan, and this is going to be a walkthrough of my solo project. It is partially based on some tutorials, but I will be explaining all the code and all the additions that I've made, and it's going to be a very long video. I'm going to separate it into parts. First, I will walk you through the game. So I'm launching it right now. It's called Molly's World. This is a really cool AI generated art that I got off a text prompt and an image of my cat. There is the exit, which closes the game. There is a menu for an editor, and in the editor you can place scenery. So if you have a tree, you can put it. You can save. You can also load maps. So there are tiles. We have different tile sets. Sorry for the poor images. I'm not a great artist. This toggle over here shows you whether a tile is walkable or not. So green means you can walk on it, red means you can't, and you can flip that. There's also an auto tile feature, which is not completely implemented in the proper way because it requires a lot of time on both the programmer and artist to do. But I was just reading the concept because it's something that I'm really interested in since I want to go into XR and VR development. But just to show you how it works, if we go to this and I decide to, let's use dirt so that we have a different color, and I do auto tiling, I can place it and it'll combine based on what the tiles are, the index. I'll explain that at the end of my presentation, but I just wanted to show you the functionality. I have some tiles here with, well, I have to remove the auto tile for the details, but so some tiles that I have other images just for a little variety. Yeah, and I also have an invisible scenery here, which let me first show you here. These are collision boxes that can be toggled on and off. And if I right click, it removes the current action assigned to the mouse button. And this toggle here puts the grid lines in X and Y positions, and they were drawn using the lines. So instead of drawing a whole bunch of squares, it takes each X and Y position based on the game sprite and then takes the window size to create the lines using less draw calls than if we were to use a whole bunch of rects. And the invisible scenery, I don't know if you noticed it down here, there's a little collision box. So I have a tile called invisible, which is just an alpha channeled image that when placed has a collision box, and I can use it for events. So I would be able to place this and then have something happen. Currently it's only used for screen transitions, but I could create other tiles with different names and have different collision checks to see which tiles, which collision boxes being collided with in order to have different events happen, whether maybe it's an item pickup or something like that. Unfortunately, due to time constraints, I was unable to get a win and lose game state or like all the things that I wanted to enter. I took over 50 hours maybe in total, maybe even 70 hours to implement everything line by line. You can check my GitHub and see my commit history. Another thing that we have on this tool is a little mini map, so you can move it around. So if the size of the game map was larger, which is up to me to instantiate the size, I decided to go with a fixed size because I want to do screen transitions versus maybe if I had an overworld map, because I'm a big fan of Zelda, I would do that. So I would have a larger map with more tiles, but this would be like a dungeon, so it would be fixed room sizes. I mean, I could also create a size of room that's different. It doesn't matter because everything is very flexible and customizable. I don't know if you can hear that, but there's a sound for the menu element, the buttons. And I've made a couple of rooms just to start off and show you. And it works fine. And if I make a change, so if I were to go to this one here and decide to oh, for some reason an icon is not loading here, but normally there's an arrow, and I know what it is. It's because my computer does not have the UTF font. I think I currently have the font set to a specific game font that doesn't have the down arrow image, but if I were to remove that, it would reappear, and I'll show you that in just a moment. So first, I also want to show you some of the other things the editor can do. If I hold shift and click on different collision boxes, I can now move multiple scenery objects all at once. So this makes creating levels a lot simpler than editing a text file. And if I want to delete them, I can hit the delete key and they're gone. Okay, let me first show you, well, I mean, you can see the font. This is the font I want to use, but I just realized that the arrow disappears with this font, so let me fix that really quickly. And I also want to enable the music that I have for the menu state, which, I mean, I made a couple of soundtracks with some tools, and for some reason I don't know why my hierarchy separates all the packages into different areas, but okay, I enabled the music, and then we want to go to the display for the font and change this to serif and see if that will fix that issue. So no, it didn't, because in the UI text I have it also, so we'll fix that here. And sorry, I should have double checked this beforehand, but there we go. So now we have a serif, which should bring the arrow back, and it did. And now you can also hear the music that I re-enabled. So yeah, it's just the same thing over and over. I had to turn it off because it was kind of driving me insane. All right, go back to the main menu and walk through the game. Currently, it is just moving and a couple actions, and there are no like changes to the entities when I do those actions, but here we go. So it starts like this. You can adjust the volume in the main menu, but sorry, let's do that. So first, so we have the music here. We can adjust it. The music can be a little piercing because I mean I'm not a musician either, and this adjusts the sound effects. And I'll explain how everything works once we get to the code in the next video. So we're back in the game. We can move around. Right now I have an effect that's making me move fast, which I had disabled initially because of this current problem. The speed is so high that the calculation gets messed up and it clips through the collision box of the tile. So if I disable that effect in the player under the entity package, now when I start the game, it's slower, and I have an effect where it's a claw attack. This is currently the only screen that you'll see on any other entities, and I forgot to enable the collision between the scenery and the entities. All I have to do is put that into the update, and it would allow you to make it so that prevent the enemies from going on the trees. And right now they currently quote unquote cough, which was a part of the tutorial, but I replaced it with an attack animation for the enemies that are sick. So as you can see, there's a health, sick, health. These are just UIs that were like part of the tutorial, but I would replace this. The health was not part of the tutorial. That's something that I would replace with images, and then I would have the images drawn based off of a sub-image function. And so like if I had 50% health, half the image would be drawn. That's how I would want to do it, just because I'm a big fan of Zelda. The sick and healthy was just a way to test the win and lose conditions. Let me show you the animation effect again of the claw, because this is the only place I can show you. So currently it has a bug where it'll, if I spam it, it'll start floating off. It's a funny glitch, but it also inspired me to, like, in the future want to introduce a projectile claw. So right now I can't get to the, oh, I can actually get to this one, but you see? So that would be the attack. It targets the enemy automatically. And the reason I can walk through this is because I don't have all the tiles set properly for unwalkable or not. And there we go. So now if I hit this position here, I have it set so that once I collide with the invisible tile collision, the invisible scenery collision box, it'll transition me. I ran into a lot of problems here and I spent a couple hours to get it fixed, but what it was is that as soon as you collide, it would start calculating the collision again, because you know the human isn't capable of removing their finger in a single update cycle. So then it would recalculate the position, and I was also forgetting that the Y position begins at the top of the screen and not the bottom. So I would always set the position backwards and it would just return me to the previous screen. If I want to go back to the previous screen, I can go down here and I'm here. And the reason why I started in the middle is because I just wanted to be sure that I avoided the collision box, but I can set it so that I would spawn only a couple tiles away from it instead. So we can walk around, and I hope you enjoy my repetitive track. So we go in here and this enters the dungeon. And now we're in this new area with a new tile set with my homemade tiles. These are supposed to be holes and unwalkable, but I forgot to mark it as such in this particular map. I forgot to mark all the objects on this particular map. So then we can continue, we'll go forward, and this would be the room right before the boss. The right side is just an unwalkable area that I put in, and I can speed up the update cycles just to, as a debugging feature. And I did that now just to speed my character's travel speed, and you can see that there's obstacles. If I want to, I can also enable the collision box. Now you see a little collision box on the character, and that's the size of the collision box, so that cat cannot get by the rocks. And you can see the collision boxes that I use for checking if we are moving into an event space. I forgot to delete this box because I had initially flagged it as unwalkable, and when it was serialized and saved into the text file, it was still flagged as unwalkable, so I would have to delete it and then reapply it with the walkable tag. And then once we reach the boss room, there should be a boss, but there isn't one because I wasn't able to implement it. But the music track should change, and my character should get a special effect on them. And now my character is giant, and they shrink back down. So I created that effect where it just modifies the size and raises the sprite. And I created this soundtrack, which I'll let play for a little bit so that you can enjoy my lack of music creativity. But I definitely want to continue working. It was very fun to work on this project, and look forward to seeing the videos with the code explanation next. Oh, and before I do that, I actually wanted to show you one more thing. So I can speed up, and I wanted to show you the collision boxes here so you can see all the collision boxes. I can also rework the code to make it so that the collision boxes of the unwalkable tiles are shown as well. I just didn't have time to do that. These guys are a little too far out of the reach for the claw attack, but if I were to initialize it in a different map, I would be able to hit them. Oh, and the collision boxes on this map, I like the map design, but I had created it before I realized that I set the collision offset and render offset to the same variable by mistake. So when it was saved, the old values were saved. To fix it, I would have to delete everything and then replace them all. And that is about it for the game. There's no win or lose condition, but ideally I would have like my thought was there to be a boss that you could fight and you beat it, and I don't know if the game would have an overworld map or not, and this was supposed to have an item that would have turned my claw into a projectile if I had more time. And I would have used a similar strategy as the invisible collision detection to collide into the object, remove it from within the map, and then either if I want it to be an attachment to the character or just an item in an inventory, which I have not created yet, an inventory or a pause menu. Okay, that's it for the game for now.